All right. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Rev.
We began last time very briefly the Siman. Oops, let's close this before I get feedback. Okay, sorry about that. We began the Siman last time about about the breaking of bread on Shabbos. So it's Reish Ayin Dalid. So in that packet that you have there, it's towards the back. We're getting close to finishing the packet. Um, yeah, there's a 106 in the corner there. We'll start again from the beginning, just to refresh our memory. As I mentioned last time, I think I mentioned the Kabbalah piece. I won't go back over that, I think. But the Kabbalah aspect to which loaf of bread you break, whether it's Friday night, Shabbos day, and even by Shalosh so yeah, just reminding you that I think it had to do with like that Bnei Yisrael represents the challah that you're breaking. Okay, so the bottom one on Friday night, Derech Kabbalah was representative of the fact that sort of Kadosh Baruch Hu is in charge at night, and we are. It's nighttime. Nighttime is a time of not being as out there. Um, During Shabbos day, though, it's time of Maman Har Sinai, was during the day, so we're very, very present, we're on top of things, and excited to receive the Torah. So that's perhaps more representative of being on top. And I think the Shalshus, there's something about being side by side, that the Shekhinah and the Jewish people are one by the end of Shabbos. And so I don't know if we're on the left or on the right, but
But I had an
yeah,
explanation.
yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
The one from the top on Shabbat morning, it's like the lechem shne. That's like the top, the extra.
That's the extra one.
Extra one.
So at night, it's the bottom one is the usual. Okay, that's a much more practical. Maybe that's again, you know.
But it's all minhag. I mean,
Yeah.
no
Yes.
to do this.
The yeah. No, if you break the wrong one, you're still gonna yotze the mitzvah. Okay, so let's try to let's see if we can get this exactly right. And then I want to share with you where is it here? The Aruch HaShulchan gives a nice little piece of background to this. Actually, maybe let's start with that. Before we read the Shulchan Aruch, I want to give you this background. So just listen very carefully here. To Aruch HaShulchan, who gives a summary of the Gemara. Some of this does come from the Gemara. There are parts that don't come from the Gemara, but let's take a look here. So just listen up for a moment. The Aruch HaShulchan says, Garcinan b'Shabbos, Amar Rabbi Abba, b'Shabbos chayav Adam livtzoa al shtei kikaros, dichsiv lechem mishneh. That Rabbi Abba says that on Shabbos the person is obligated to break from two loaves because the pasuk says lechem and mishneh when it's talking about there the man. Kolomar b'man ksiv. It's talking about the man. The whole pasuk is vayhi bayom hashishi. And it will be on the sixth day. Laktu lechem mishneh shnei haomer leechad. You'll pick lechem mishneh, a double, portion of bread, two omers, for one person. V'hach lechem mishneh miyutar dehavale lichtov laktu shnei haomer. You didn't need to say pick lechem mishneh and then two omers. We know actually the Torah tells us how much was one portion of man was one omer. So if you tell me to take two omers, right? That value, then okay, then it's extra. And anytime you have extra the Torah, this is an obvious time for Chazal to make a drasha. And so v'lazed darshinu shezel inyan b'fnei atzmo v'hachi perusho, and this is how you explain the extra piece, the lechem mishnah. The halechem shel seudos Shabbos tiyeh mishnah. The breads that you use at the meals on Shabbos should be doubled. Okay? Uv'mechilta isa gam kein lechem mishneh. Rabbi Yoshua Omer lechem kaful ayin shani. He says it should be doubled bread. Okay, in the Medrash, which is the same idea.
That work out if you're only taking two portions? What?
having three. Shabbos, you're taking two, so you're eating one Omer on Friday.
Right, but in order to, it's not about the enacting the exactly what happened historically. It's about remembering that miracle throughout Shabbos. So as long as you always have the double portion, it will help you. It'll serve as a reminder. It's not trying to recollect what it was like to, have double. And then obviously when you get to the Shabbos day, you're down to single, right? You're down to, so I think it's just to remind us of that miracle at every meal that we have. And we'll talk more about shalashudas. It's the machlokas. Do you need lechem mishnah on shalashudas? The machlokas, whether or not you need bread at shalashudas. It seems to be that it's better, much better. But lechem mishnah is an interesting discussion. So we get there when we get there. V'niras shezehu din Torah v'lo asmachta be'alma. U'v'debe'emes hach lechem mishnah miyutar legamrei k'moshe kasav. And the Aruch HaShulchan here says something very interesting. He goes, it appears to me that this law of having lechem mishnah may be a biblical law. And not just an asmachta, not just like an idea, like not which one you cut, that's the difference. But the idea of having 2 loaves of bread at your meal on Shabbos is something that would be on a Torah level. He says here, V'amrina Sham Amar Rav Ashi, and it says in the Gemara over there, Amar Rav Ashi, Chazina Leila Rav Kahana Denaki Tarte Uvat Sachada. Here's where we start getting into how many do you cut. The Gemara talks about it a little bit. The Rav Ashi said, I saw the Rav Kahana, he would take 2 loaves and he would break one. What's the chada? Amar laktu ksiv. Ma'adamashma achiza. It says collect loaves of bread. So therefore I have to hold 2 loaves of bread. Aval betzia lo ksiv mishneh. But when it talks about how many I have to break, it doesn't say in the Torah, break 2 loaves of bread. It says laktu, collect double portion. So if I'm trying to remember the miracle of collecting the 2 loaves of the double portion, then when I am doing this hamotzi, this memory, triggering the memory of the man, I don't have to break both the loaves of bread. I could have one. Obviously, I'm making hamotzi, so I have to break one of them, but I don't need to break both. Now you say, why am I getting such a, that's not so easy for people who are, on a budget that's mitzumtzam. That's like, I can only buy what I can buy and I can't buy more. It makes a difference. Do I have to break both? Because now I have to buy either, it's a matter of an extra loaf of bread or even an extra 2 loaves of bread if I'm talking about shalashudas. Otherwise, I could save the untouched loaf and I could use it again tomorrow for lechem mishnah. So that's, it seems a little, silly, like we're arguing about how many loaves I have to break. No, the question is how many loaves do I have to hold? And that's why it's not about how many you have to break, but that's at least according to Rav Kahana. And then Rabbi Zera, Batza lechule sheiruse prusa gadola v'dailo la'osa seuda v'nir kemechave v'suda Shabbos lischazek lechol harbe. Rabbi Zera, he would break from each of the breads. Okay, so there was an Amora who would take both loaves and break both loaves because he wanted to eat a lot at the meal so that we had more bread. Then bread was often eaten throughout the meal with the other foods in times of the Talmud. One second, Simeon. I see your hand up. Let me get a few more lines in here, Simeon, and then you're gonna jump in. Okay, just want to give everybody the context. Then here comes the key. Rashba, okay, the Rashba, who was a Rishon, a very important commentary on the Gemara. That's right. Gores akule sherusa. Kolomar, right? Shechata chashnei chalos. So he says, sorry. See, I already messed up. See, the Rashba had a different girsa of the Gemara. The way it's written in the Gemara says that Rabbi Zera would break lekule sherusa. Okay, he would take the biggest piece. He would look at all the bread, and he would use the biggest one to be the one that you break. But the Rashba had a different girsa in the Gemara, which said akule sherusa. He would break all of the bread, not the one that was. He would break lekule sheruse. Right, Prusa Gadola it was not from all of them, but he would break the Rashba's Girsa added a letter which changes the whole meaning, which means he broke all the bread.
In one shot.
He broke both lech, yeah.
For what they did?
What was that?
Is there a reason given for what they did? The
Re-
differences?
Yes, I think that there's some explanation trying to be given here. Yes, the Chen Koslav Rav Haigon. Rav Haigon also had this Girsa in the Gemara. V'zel Lishonon. This is what the Rav Haigon says. If you make a bracha on 2 loaves of bread, ubatzachada, and you break one, kirav kahana shapidani. So you've done like Rav Kahana, who was the first opinion in the Gemara. But if you break both of them, Rabbi Zera Shapir Dami. Then you've satisfied the opinion of Rabbi Zera, which shows you that Rav Haigon had the reading of the Gemara that you break both loaves of bread. Ad kan lishon of the Rav Haigon. Nam hatur v'shulchan aruch lo hivu klal. The Torah and the Shulchan Aruch don't mention this at all. The idea of Rav Haigon and the Rashba's reading of the Gemara, they don't bring this at all. Rak divrei Rav Kahana. They only quote the opinion of Rav Kahana, which is that you break the one bread. Right? Denaki tarta ubatzachada umitzvah livsoa prusa gadola. And if it's great if you're choosing which of the two to break the big one. Shetafsik lechol asur to last you the whole meal, which is how Rashi explained Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera was that when you're choosing which one to break, choose the big one. And that's really what you're going to see here reflected in the Shulchan Aruch, which is this reading that is more of a reflection of Rashi, and not the Rashba, and not Rav Haigon. But be aware that there were opinions based on how they read the Gemara that you should break both chalos that when you're making hamotzi on Shabbos, and then v'chein v'kachen divrei harambam. The Rambam also agrees with Rashi and his reading of Rashi, his reading of the Gemara. Why did they read it this way? Because they didn't want to make a machlokas between Rabbi Zera and Rav Kahana. You think they are like arguing one bread, two breads? No, they're not arguing with each other. He's sharpening his opinion that his said one, and he said, and choose the big one. V'od Rav Kahana midayek mikra the rak lok tu shnaim. Especially because Rabbi Zera's whole drasha was about it's not about eating; it's about collecting, holding it. V'lo chaticha shnayim. V'od, and the Kolba also brings it from a medrash. Be'erev Shabbos yarad lahem haman b'shnei omerim umeomer asula shnei lechamim. From one omer you can make 2 loaves of bread. Apparently, according to the medrash, echad mehen erev Shabbos v'baboker v'hasheni b'leil Shabbos v'hashlishi v'baboker v'haravi b'sudah shlishis. If I can only use 4 loaves of bread to make it through Shabbos, that means I did not break 2 at each one. So the medrash and the mechilta seems to indicate that an very early understanding that only 1 loaf of bread needs to be broken, not both. That's actually a pretty good proof to bring the medrash that says you only need 4 loaves at the 3 meals, because you can make it through by using 2 and then save 1 for the next day, etc., for the next meal, etc. And that's, by the way, at the end here, the Aruch HaShulchan says "V'chein nahagu rov ha'olam," which is also very important. What was the minhag? The minhag was really to break 1. People, look, if you want to break 2, you can break 2. It's not an isser, but you don't have an obligation to have to break from both chalos on Shabbos. One second, Shlomo. I know Simeon was waiting, and I wanted to get to him, and then Shlomo will come to you. Go ahead, Simeon.
Rav, I'm sorry. I lost the connection when you started this, and I cannot find the place at all.
No, I was reading from the Aruch HaShulchan. That's why I was saying that you won't have it. So this is this extra. I was giving you extra credit here, so that when we jump into the Shulchan Aruch now, it'll make sense where all this is coming from, etc.
Can I make a comment?
Thank you.
Yeah. Shlomo, go ahead, and then Richard. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that it's interesting this reference for the Mishneh on the third meal.
That's exactly what I was gonna ask. 4 loaves isn't gonna get you through.
If you have 2,
In the reference here on
You do
Mishneh,
one of each meal.
what?
You just cut one at
you
each.
cut 1 at each meal. So you have 2 on the Friday night, and then I need so I save 1 for the next meal. So I have now a total of number 2 and number 3, and then I save number 3 for Shalosh, and I have number 3, number 4. So that medrash, even though the Aruch HaShulchan says, by the way, he's like, I can't find that medrash. He says, but I skipped that line. The MS from Hilchot Shabbat lo matzasi says, I can't find that medrash. But he says, but people have that medrash. So like I'm trusting them that they're quoting the medrash correctly. But that shows you that they only minimally ate from 1 at any meal. Yes.
So I don't remember I saw that. Okay, but there's a reference to the idea that it's not just the mun, it's also the lechem upon him in the base of Mikdash. That there were showbreads in the base of Mikdash.
Yeah.
And there were 12 loaves.
Right.
So, I remember Speed Bricks all over the show. When he said his Shabbos table, he had 12 loaves of bread on his table.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
But I also saw a reference that you take 2 loaves of bread for each meal.
Yeah.
Right? And you cut them in half, both loaves.
Yeah.
Then you have 4 loaves at each
Right.
meal. So 4, 4, and 4 gives you 12 loaves.
Ah,
So there's a
minhag to cut both.
there's
For
a
some people.
minhag which goes to the lechem upon him, which was 12 and not 2,
Right.
and nobody mentioned it here.
It's interesting. The only thing he mentioned, I wasn't going to go into it, but since you brought it up, he quotes an interesting Maharshal, okay, who quotes a minhag. He's not basing it. He says the Maharshal said Nohag Balayla Echad. At night he cut one. This is not what you're describing, but he only cut one. Uvayom on the second meal, on the Shabbos day meal, he cut both. Shnei kikaros. Mishum dechvod hayom kodem l'chod laila, to show extra kavod for the daytime. I'm going to have more bread with my food during the day, thus enhancing that meal. And he says that there were a lot of people in Lita, I guess Rysin. I'm not sure. What is Rysin? The area of Rysin. I'm not sure. Is that Russia? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm sure someone can tell me. And Zamut Shenoagin, the Kama, for many generations, that they would follow the opinion of the Gra. The Gra would cut both chalas at every meal. That was the Gra's minhag. And many communities, he said, for many generations, followed the Gra. And anyways, yeah. So there are definitely different minhagim, but by the letter of the law and according to most the minhag of most, and of many communities, you only need to break one. But there are, actually he mentions it here. Ready? I promise I skipped over this line. V'hamekubalim nohagu b'yud beis chalos. I didn't know if this was around. K'mo lechem upon him. V'hu b'priyei tzchayim.
Okay, here we go again.
And it says there also that you should kiss your mother's hand.
There's a sword in there, so I'm not sure. I've heard about it, but
Right. There's a lot of Kabbalah here.
Yeah.
I've reached my max. I don't know how to explain this. So the Yud Beis Chalos, okay, but that how this connects though, because I guess the mom was the one who was baking it, and so there's some minhag here. You should kiss your mother's hand so you can hear it. You heard it here first. Connected to this idea. Okay, let's now. Yeah, Lord.
It's so they're using challah as simple. It sounds like just becomes this scaffold for just customs that. Almost because the Friday night meal is a focal point.
Yeah,
you're looking to just glom everything onto it.
A lot of symbols.
A lot of symbols, a lot of history, a lot of custom. There's nothing to do with manna.
Right. Right. And right.
I mean, it takes. It seems that it's taken on a life to itself.
There's definitely Kabbalah that's tied to this. Let's take a look. Let's read this now because I think
also Kabbalah that ties the bread, the wine, and the candles together.
Right. Which is, by the way, the next topic after this one is what you can't do by the light of the candles. So there's and we talked about at the end of last siman that when you make kiddush, it's better to make it near the candles, right? Unless the flies are bothering you, in the house, that you can go outside. All right. So let's take a look at the Shulchan Aruch. With this background in mind, I think hopefully this will be a quick siman. And the reason you'll see there's so much there isn't a tremendous amount of that's rooted in the Gemara. We read the Gemara part now from the Aruch HaShulchan. Now let's look at the Shulchan Aruch. Let's go to Sif Aleph. Botzeh al shtei kikaros shlemos. You should break from 2 whole loaves. She'oches shteihen biyado. Hold. This is the key, and this is actually very important. You should hold both of them in your hands when you make hamotzi. Okay. She'oches shteihen biyado. Ubotzeh hatachton. But then you can cut the bottom one, and we'll talk about the top bottom one in a moment. V'dafka b'leil Shabbos, when you cut the bottom one, that's on Friday night. But if it's Shabbos day or it's a Yom Tov night, you break the top one. V'hatamhu al derech hakabbalah, as I mentioned to you earlier, the reason comes about through Kabbalah and not any other reason. Don't start to think like the top, the bottom, for a different reason. Very good. I got to teach my class. What? What? Just ask me clearly, and then I'll answer you. Oh, yeah? That's fine with me. Okay, here, let me open. You want this one right here?
I know which key.
I'll do it, because the doors are heavy. Okay, and I'm going to go right back to teaching, okay? Sorry, everybody. Okay? Remember to stay in here, okay?
He's got the cutest kids.
Yeah.
Okay? I'll leave it open for display, okay? Thank you. So anyways, that's what the Shulchan Aruch has to say with along with the Ramah.
Where'd both say it?
Yes.
That means break?
Break.
With
Yes.
your hand?
That's right.
But we always use
Well, actually, I don't know if it means with your hands. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't want to say that with certainty. Obviously, lachtoch is to cut.
But the word in Hebrew is just to cut with your hand.
Oh, so it's the implication of hand. Now, and that's not surprising. I'll tell you why. Because during the weekdays, if you go, and actually, we'll make reference to it in the Mishnah Berurah here. The idea is that when you make the bracha of hamotzi on a typical weekday, you're actually supposed to have already cut the bread to the point where, if I were to sort of hold it up, it wouldn't flop and fall off. And this is to cut it most of the way, so that once I make the bracha, I can then rip the rest of it and quickly eat. Because we've talked about many times that you're supposed to minimize the time between the bracha and the eating, and this is something that is described again in the earlier simanim that talk about just what do you do at a meal. So it's interesting because the difference on Shabbos is that you have to keep them shlemos. All the way all the way shalom. Because on the weekday, it's still better to make the bracha. You want to have it on one big loaf, but you want to have already started cutting it. This is where you see, and we'll talk about the minhag. You saw some people take their challah knife and they kind of make a little impression on the challah, because it's a hint towards that idea that you actually want to have started cutting it, so that you can then what you do after you make the hamotzi is then rip the rest because it's already half cut. And then I make hamotzi on a Tuesday. I rip the rest of it off and I eat. But on Shabbos, because of this requirement of whole loaves, I can't start the cut. We'll talk about it again. People make this little indentation into it, but and so that's why the word botseya probably does come to mean rip it with your hand, because but you do start it with a knife. That was the idea, that you started with a knife. And then you make hamotzi, rip, eat.
We haven't seen the word knife in here yet.
Correct. Yeah. Right now it's all.
If you go to buy a challah board, there's going to be a knife coming with it. It's like the challah knife is a big deal, and you're fancy, and so
correct.
There's got to be some source for using a knife.
Right. Let's see. I don't think it came up the thing about this. It came up when it comes to making the impression. That's where the word sakin comes up for in the Mishnah Berurah. I remember yesterday.
If you're using matzah?
They take the knife and you slice the matzah. Yeah, that's a great example of where you break the bread. Okay, take a look at Sif Aleph in the Mishnah Berurah. Shnei kicharos. Why is this the case? Why two? No surprises here. Zecher laman. It is to remember the man. And that's why it's so important to hold the double loaves. And that's why it's so important. Even if you did Poris Mapo Makadesh, you don't have to make Hamotzi again, because you had been eating a meal before Shabbos and it continued into Shabbos. In Sif Katan Aleph, he's telling us you have to hold both loaves because you have to remember the man. That is an important aspect of is to hold two loaves. Because they collected with their hands a double portion. So you're going to hold it in your hands to remember that miracle. Also, Yom Tov, you have to hold to break two loaves. Why? I think we mentioned this last time. The understanding of Chazal, I think, comes from Medrash, is that also the double portion fell on Erev Yom Tov. They didn't go out and collect on Yom Tov, even though they say, "Well, I'm a Rabbi Klinger. You're allowed to carry on Yom Tov." So yeah, but there are other halachos about nolad on Yom Tov. Beit Shenadol Yom Tov, you can't use it. So maybe need the Rabbanon. They were careful in the desert. I was kidding. There were no rabbinic such laws in the desert. But the tradition was that also on Erev Yom Tov, double portion fell. I'm not sure what happened before Rosh Hashanah. Did they have a triple portion fall? Because according to the Torah, Rosh Hashanah is also one day. So I wouldn't get into that one. The idea of Rosh Hashanah being a 2-day holiday, not our topic right now. Even in Israel, it's a 2-day holiday. It's a separate topic. But clearly from the Torah, it was meant to. It's a 1-day. It's Aleph Tishrei, the first day of the 7th month.
Really the concept of having the days. I know it's very complicated to explain, but I mean, what's
Yeah,
I would like to talk about.
I'll say the holiday falls out on the first of the month. So you're dealing with a big challenge, because in order to determine when the month starts, you you don't have wiggle room. Like by the middle of the month, if you're talking about Pesach or Sukkot, you can adjust the calendar already by then. You'll know which day was Rosh Chodesh, and you can figure it out. But if I miss the day of of Rosh Hashanah, then it's over. If the Eidim come to say it was it was Rosh Chodesh, it was Rosh Hashanah all along. They come mincha time at the end of the day. We missed all the korbanos. We missed all the the shofar. And it's that. Just saying, the time of the month plays a factor into that. So just keep that in mind. It's the only holiday that falls out on the first of the month.
It's interesting that in Israel also.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, because by the time that the 15th of the month rolls around, the people in Haifa could figure out what's the right day, because they got the message. But but when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, if I'm living in a different part of, not that far from Yerushalayim, I might not even get the message when the Eidim came to the Sanhedrin and they declared it was a new month. And if it's a new month, well, it turns out today was Rosh Hashanah all along, which was a Yom Tov, right? And I wasn't supposed to violate any of the laws of Malacha. There's no other Rosh Chodesh quite like it where you have a holiday on it. Hanukkah falls out, but that's a rabbinic holiday.
They light fires to signal.
Yeah, you couldn't even light a fire. Right. So I'm just saying that without getting into the weeds of that plays a big factor into that. Okay. All right. All right. Let's go. Let's keep going here. V'gam hanashim mechuyavos b'lechem mishnah. The Mishnah here says also women are obligated in lechem mishnah. Why shahayu gam came b'nei Haman? They were also involved. They were as relevant to the man miracle as anybody. The men, women, everybody. The children also. They all benefited from the man that fell. So therefore, women also have to. You can't say, well, it's a mitzvah hasei shazman grama to have two. It's a positive time-bound mitzvah to have 2 loaves of bread. It's only on Shabbos that I can have this mitzvah of 2 loaves. So therefore, it's positive time-bound. I'm exempt. No. You are also included in this. That's often an exception to the rule. Like Kriyas HaMegillah, we don't say women are exempt from Kriyas HaMegillah, even though it was a positive time-bound mitzvah, because they also experienced the miracle. By the way, it came from the hands of a woman, right? In terms of Esther. Yeah.
Women can be motzi, can discharge men of their obligations in making kiddush.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
To the extent that you're then dealing with bread, is bread paired with making kiddush, or is it separate? And if it's paired, I get the fact that, I get it in both instances, but to the extent motzi is paired with kiddush on wine, to the extent women are yotze, could be motzi men on wine, it then follows they too are obligated in bread.
Yeah. Yep.
Have anything separate.
Yep. 100%. I think that's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct what you said. And then he just says here at the end of that comment, yotze b'lechem mishnah. Bepas haba bekisnin, if you can be discharging your lechem mishnah obligation with pas haba bekisnin, it's a bread with a pocket. The word kis, right? That it's filled with something. It has some flavoring in there. You put some jelly inside. I don't know. You put something inside there, right? He says, take a look at Kuf Samech Ches, which I'm pulling up right now in front of me, which is maybe why you can't see me for the moment, but you can hear me. Here we go. Kuf Samech Ches. Sif Zayin. He says that's where you'll find it in the Mishnah Berurah there. He describes Pas Hababakistan there in that place as, Pas Asui Kimin Kisim. It's like pockets. Shemim loim or some dvash. You put honey inside. O sukar ve'egozim mushkedim. Walnuts, almonds and walnuts. Vitavlin and spices. All sorts of different things here are used to enhance the flavor. It's not plain bread anymore. And this is where a machlokas ensues about whether or not you can use this type of a bread. I'm just finding here in the Mishnah Berurah, where you can use that as lechem Mishnah. Here, hold on. I'm finding what the Mishnah Berurah's comments are here.
Rob, in an earlier year, a few weeks ago, Hinda raised a question about additional ingredients in the challah, and the answer at the time was that it constitutes the need for not a motzi but a mizonos. And here, the Chafetz Chaim seems to be telling us that with the added ingredients, we can still be mekayim the mitzvah of the motzi.
Yes, that
So
shows good.
where are we on this?
So on the Pas Hababakistan?
Yes.
So let me read you right around for the other simon. The Ramah says that when you have all these mixed things, which the Shulchan Aruch had called Pas Hababakistan, he quotes V'yesh omrim shezeh nikra pas gamor. That's just bread, says the Ramah. And this is where you have the machlokas between Sfaradim and Ashkenazim. The Ashkenazim, the Ramah says that's bread. Whatever, I'm not sure what it is. Right? This is unless you have so much spice or so much honey that it's like this bread called lekoch. I'm not sure what that is.
Lekach is cake.
Oh, lekach. Oh, it's lekach. There you go. It's cake, right? That's all you can call it cake. Unless you call it cake, right? Then it's just bread. And he famous words, v'chein nohagim. And he says that's what the minhag is, meaning, or Mishnah Berurah says over there, she'ofen l'lechem mishnah pasi ma'at shemen v'tavlin. People use oil, they use spices, maybe a little bit of, some, honey, right? That you can use that as lechem mishnah. Now, that's only for the Ashkenazim. The Sfaradim, I don't think are okay. Shlomo, you'll tell me? Using something that's sweet, like a sweet challah, or it's a water challah, right? This is why there's a difference, because the Ramah calls that lechem gamur. And the Shulchan Aruch says, no, that's Pas Hababakistan. And he's not comfortable with Pas Hababakistan being used for lechem mishnah. So that's why there'll see a difference when you go to Ashkenazim. They will use such challah at their table, because that's lechem gamur, right? Raisin challah, right? Sfaradim would not have a raisin challah. Absolutely not, right? Yeah, water, right, exactly. And that's the reason, because that's Pas Hababakistan, which, by the way, you might need to make hamotzi on. If you have enough of it, it's making a meal out of it. But you can't, but Sfaradim would never use it, never even think of using such a thing as the lechem mishnah for the mitzvah, on Friday night and Shabbos, for the 3 meals on Shabbos. Okay. Even on Yom Tov, correct. I don't right. Right, Shlomo, there's no differentiation on Yom Tov for Sfaradim. Same thing, right? I didn't. All right, Beis Shleimos. Go back to the Mishnah Berurah here. Whole loaves. The uga shenisraf. I maybe read this last time. I don't remember. The uga shenisraf k'tzas v'adayin lo nechtach mena yesh orim the yotzim bo le'inyan lechem mishnah. Ayin b'shar tshuva. If it's a little burnt, but it was still whole. A little part of it was burnt. There are those that say it's still fine. It's lechem mishnah, no problem, even though it's a little burnt parts. Next sentence. Now, if I don't have any pas shlema available to me, you are stuck on the road for Shabbos. All you have are a sliced loaf of bread. You think, I'm a goner. I can't make hamotzi at the meal. Again, this is absolutely, This is only if you don't have available another option. Then what do? You it's not ma'akev. It doesn't prevent you from doing the mitzvah of yachol lekadosh afilu al kazayis pas. Okay, you'll take an olive's worth of bread, not a whole loaf, and you'll use it. You'll still say hamotzi. Better than nothing. Let's put it that way, right? Better than nothing. V'nachon linhog shezebos shebotzei yechave and liftog v'birchas hamotzi kol ha'mesubin. Another halacha here that the minhag is the correct minhag to that one person should break and make the bread the hamotzi for all the mesubin, for all those who are enjoying the meal together. V'gam yomar la hamesubin sheyichav l'latzes v'irchaso, and you should say to all those around them, please pay attention. I'll have you in mind. Because you know why? Because if only I am, and you just have a piece of bread, you have one challah roll. Everyone has a challah roll. As long as you go to meals and like catered meals, like there's like one challah roll of everything. You can't. You need to have two. So you need to get the person next to you, put your challah roll together. It can't be like, well, they didn't give me two, so it's fine. I'll have my one. No, you should have two. So they're better to have one person make the bracha and everybody, listens and he or she hands out the pieces. Acherim Yomar, Birshus Ramosai. Before you make the hamotzi, say Birshus with the permission of my masters. Everybody's attention, right? Afal Pishu Balabais or Gadol, even if he's a Balabais, well, he needs to ask for permission. He's the Balabais. He's a Gadol. He's a great Rav. Why do you have to ask for permission? It's about humility. I'm asking for permission from everybody. I'm getting you to pay attention, and I want you to listen to my bracha so that you can be yotzei with my bracha.
Sif to eat your one flour, sort of like wine. You don't have to have wine from the cup that the person makes.
Yeah. So you do need.
You have your one flour in front of you, and he cuts.
So he doesn't mention this here. The Aruch HaShulchan mentions the case about if one person makes the bracha, can you have your own challah? If you have lechem mishnah in front of you, then you can take your own. Meaning he can make the bracha, and I can eat from my lechem mishnah. But if I don't have lechem mishnah, I need to have a piece from the lechem mishnah. Yeah. What was that? Oh, he's about to say it again? Okay, there you go. Okay. Sivkatan Gimel. Biyado, you should hold them in your hands. Bishas hamotzi. When you're saying hamotzi, you are holding two loaves in your hand. It's actually very important to hold them, not just to you should hold them. Okay. Which again, it harkens the pasuk. They were collecting. That's the symbolism. If I'm holding it, it's like I collected it. Daled uvot sheya v'chulei shahare lo nemar lecha mishnah ela balikita. Right? It only mentions the double portion, the double bread by collecting, not by breaking. V'rashal ushla nahagulach toch shnehem. As I mentioned to you, the Marshal and the Shla, their custom was to cut both. Here's that word lachtoch, by the way, Richie. Lachtoch. And they cut both, like the Rashba, like we talked about the Rashba, right? The reason that we got the background, the reason they did that, the Shla and the Marshal, the reason that a lot of communities did this was because that was what the Gra did. And if you were, Chassid of the Gra,
was a catalyst.
Right. Oh no, sorry. The Rashal though, yeah, he was. But the Rashal was the one who said. It's interesting. The Aruch HaShulchan quoted him as cutting two at night, but one during the day.
Is that Shlomo?
Yes. Yes. It's interesting, which is not how he's quoted here. That's interesting. I'm just saying. The Aruch HaShulchan had pointed out that the Marshal said cut one at night, two during the day. Here he just mentions two. Okay. Anyways,
makes no sense, Rav. That makes no sense. If the reason, according to the Mishnah Berurah, is the fact that they gathered a double portion, the double portion was gathered so they wouldn't have to gather on Shabbos, and they would have the second portion for Shabbos. And here, he's suggesting that you eat from the second portion on Friday night. It makes no sense.
Yeah, there were many who had this man. Like the Gra did that. It's because of that reading of the Gemara excuse me, the Rashba had, that Rabbi Zera Batsa Achule Sheruse. He would break from all of the bread that was available. Okay, that was the gears of the Rashba had in the Gemara. Instead of that, he would Batsa Lechule Sheruse Prusa Gadola. He would look at the breads and pick the biggest one. So because of that extra aleph in the girsa of the Rashba, which also Rav Haigon had, it would lead you to the understanding that Rabbi Zera would break both in order to be maybe Yotze Lechol Hadeos, to fulfill at least from all the opinions. The Rashba said you should break from both loaves. That's not the minhag that we necessarily have. Again, that was the Graz minhag though, and so therefore anyone who followed the Graz customs had followed that approach. Now, the makpid al ha'otzah ose shalosh chalos gedolos v'shalosh ketanos v'chol suda botze achas gedola v'achas ketana. Okay, so if you are worried about price, I think that's what the word hotzah here means, how much it costs. But you want to follow the gra, you want to try to be really, so make 3 big loaves and 3 small loaves, because you'll, that way you have 2 loaves, but you're not. It's not overly expensive, because you want to have 1 big one, because that way you can enjoy throughout the meal, and the little one, okay, I got my 2 loaves, in there. But the world seems to follow the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch, which is you could just break 1. It's not. There's not. You don't need to make yourself overly crazy with the breaking of 2. 1 is sufficient. Like the Shulchan Aruch. Kostav Prima God, and Mimain lo b'Shabbos pas Yisrael, ki im pas einam Yehudim mutar lechol menu v'ayin sham od. That it is ideal. It's clear from the statement, by the way, that it is ideal to have pas Yisrael as your lecha mishnah. Most people, if you're buying challah, just I'm saying practically today, if you're buying a challah, it's pas Yisrael. If you're baking your own challah, that's by definition pas Yisrael. But if, let's say, you don't have pas Yisrael available, you didn't go to the bakery, you didn't go to, whatever, and it's like, all I have are some rolls that were labeled OU, but were like, generic, they were pas, what's it called? Pas taco, they're pas palter, they're baker's bread. And you go to the bakery, a non-Jewish baker, but you could ascertain that it was kosher. You can still use that. If that's all you have available. So motor lechol, then it's fine to eat from that. Again, but it's certainly more ideal to have pas Yisrael. It's seen as a higher standard, more chashivos, even if the taste is the same or maybe not as good, but
Maybe better.
And the price is elevated also. All right, sif hey, you have to cut from the bottom one, hatachtona. So what do we learn about this? Cutting from the bottom one, habach tama. The Bach says, what? Cut from the bottom one? He wonders, how in the world could you get away with that? It's the halachic problem. What's the halacha? Ein ma'avir al ha-mitzvah. You're not supposed to pass over a mitzvah, which is why, by the way, I was just, looking at my talis bag of my tefillin over here. If you're supposed, when you put on your tefillin, you're supposed to put your tefillin shel yad on first, till a certain point. Then you put your tefillin shel rosh. What if you stick your hand into the bag? This has happened to me. You reach in, and because somebody else wore your tefillin, and they put it back differently, because I put it back exactly the same way every time. And so I'm a machine now. It's like I reached for the left hand side of the bag, right, or whatever. I don't know, right, left. I don't remember which side now. It's just, but I don't even think about it. I just put my hand in, and I know which one's my shel yad. But it's happened before that I've been in school and I've let kids borrow my tefillin because they forgot their tefillin. I said, "Here, where my tefillin? You guys did mitzvah," and they put their tefillin back the other way, and I reach in, I grab my al rosh.
You have to put that on first.
Correct, Simeon. Absolutely. You're not allowed to then put it back in the bag and go take the other one. Why? Because ein ma'avir al ha-mitzvah. So you're not allowed to pass over the mitzvah. I have a mitzvah to put this on. Who am I to then say I'm going to put it back and take the other one? So actually, if I grab the wrong tefillin and I pull it out of the bag and I go, ooh, shel rosh, I actually should put the shel rosh on first.
You make the same bracha you would for the yad when you do it first.
I think if you do that,
You say the beginning, you say that.
You say lahaniach?
Yeah.
Well, the Sfaradim say lahaniach they make one bracha to cover both. I do think though that when you put on the second one, you would wait maybe till afterwards or something like that, and but you should make both. Ashkenaz, you should make both brachos at the end. By the end of the whole situation, you should make both. But
What do you mean both bodies?
you wouldn't know. It's fine.
I lost the point.
Yeah, that's not your minhag. You know, you probably never. The only time you would ever make the bracha of al mitzvah tefillin is if you talked in between for Sfaradim. If you talk in between the tefillin shel yad and the tefillin shel rosh, then before you put on the shel rosh, you have to say al mitzvah tefillin.
But Ashkenazim then would say Laniach twice.
The
You're supposed to say Laniach if you're talking.
Is that correct? Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. I mean, that sounds familiar. But
so let's say you did the wash, you stuck into the wash. So you have to wait until you do the arm.
then for you, it's easy. There's always one bracha. Whatever order you do it in, one bracha. Ashkenaz, and we have the second bracha because it's the question. It's two mitzvos, so we make two brachos. Yeah. That's by the way. That's why Ashkenaz and we say Baruch Shem afterwards. Because when you say Baruch Shem when you make a bracha that you didn't, that's perhaps a bracha levatala. So because maybe the second bracha was unnecessary, we say Baruch Shem. That's the whole reason we say Baruch Shem. You probably don't even say Baruch Shem when you put it on your tefillin. No, exactly. That would make sense because that's Sfaradim though, because they make one bracha. So it's Ashkenazi problems. We create our own problems. You have a simpler life. You know, we make problems for ourselves. Okay. What was that?
Call them the Polish Jewish police.
There you go. All right. So he says habach tama dein ma'avir al mitzvah. So you can't pass over a mitzvah. If the challah is on top, how can I go and I say, okay, challah, have a nice day. I'm going to go focus on the bottom one. That's not kavod for the challah, which was used for a mitzvah. It was used as a part of the lechem mishnah. So why shouldn't I cut the one that's right in front of me? So what does he say here? The Taz fixes this. So what did he do? I think Simeon, you mentioned this last time. What did he do? He made it like a diagonal, you know. So the one's on top, one's on the bottom, and then he would, kind of, lean it this way. So the top one is kind of further away from me, and the bottom one is kind of jutting out towards me, even though it's on the bottom, but it's jutting out towards me. So it's closer than the top one. Turns out I first meet the bottom one. Or I should take the top one at the time of the bracha of hamotzi. You know what's the best way to say I didn't pass over it? I took the one that was on top, and then as I'm making hamotzi, right? Right? B'shas bracha, I take it, I put it under the bottom. But it was on top first. I can't ignore the one that was on top first. Right? He was really the one that's on top. Even though he's on the bottom now. I love how we anthropomorphize these challahs, but okay. Remember, you're not supposed to cut. Until after the bracha, kadei shiyu hakikaros shlemos ayin sham. Okay. Let me actually want to look this up 1 second, very quickly. So here, in Kuf, I'll give you the context. Kuf Samach Zayin. Here's what he says in Sif Aleph. I won't you leave you. Don't trust. My rabbi always told you, don't trust what they say. You have to always go look it up. So in Sif Aleph, over there, it says, in the Ramah. Okay. This is very important. Best. Okay? Their ovens are probably not as good as distributing heat as ours are, so maybe you had different parts that were baked well or not baked well. Right? And, for our breads, cut from the sides, the top, the bottom, a little bit from the top, a little from the bottom. Okay. So you're cutting one piece. Cut a piece of what's broken. when if I'm holding the loaf, yale shar hakikar, it won't fall. So imagine you cut it enough that if I hold it, the piece won't lop off like this. Okay. She'im lokein choshev kiprusa. Otherwise, it's considered cut at that point. V'yanichena mechuberes lepas v'yaschil levarach v'achas shesiyam abracha yafriden. So, what do? If I start the cut, then I take it and I hold it together. Okay, and anyways, it shouldn't fall off. And what do? I hold like this. I make the bracha, and after the bracha, yafridena, kadesha tichla habracha. The od shapas shalim, so that the bracha ends like as if the bread was whole. V'lo yivtza prusa katana b'pnei shenira kitzar ayin, and they shouldn't break the little piece because it looks like I'm being stingy. V'lo prusa yosem mikabetza b'pnei shenira kirav vasan, and I shouldn't have such a big piece, otherwise I look like I've never eaten before, right? It's like manners here in the Shulchan Aruch, not too big, not too small, right? But that's very important. Right? Shemiachos befrusa ya'ale shar hakikar imo she'imo kein chashuv keprusa v'yanichena mechuberes lepas v'yaschel levarach v'achas shesiyam habracha yafridena kedei shetichla habracha v'od shapas shalom. Okay, fine. And he writes here the Rama uv'Shabbos lo yachtoch bakikar ad achar habracha kedei sheyu hakikaro shlemos. Can't cut so that they are totally whole. If you cut it like during the weekdays, eino mazik. Okay, it's fine. The fact that you shouldn't cut more than an egg's worth. That's only during the weekdays. The ocha levado, and you're eating by yourself. About the Shabbos, because you can start cutting big pieces, right? Don't just cut the small piece on the edge. Cut right in the middle. Start cutting the big pieces and start, really, giving it out. So,
your piece first.
of course, you have to eat your piece first. Yeah, that's going to come up. That will come up for sure. That's going to come up in Dalit, something like that, or Laz Gimel, or.
To get to it fast enough, if you made that cut, you got to take.
It takes longer. Yeah, yeah. So.
Short end. Otherwise you're delaying it. If you cut it through the big part, and then you're going to take the small forward part, you're delaying getting to your part after the bracha. Or you're rushing to do the eat it fast.
Right. You should. Yeah. So it could be that you can cut from the edge, eat, then you can start, making some big cuts.
Not doing what it's saying about cutting it through that.
Oh, through the right. Then it could be more than a beitzah. Well, but that was more of like a manners, like in terms of like don't cut the such big pieces if it's just you. Then you look like a guy who's never eaten before. Kirav vasel, kirav ton, like a person who's like literally, starving.
Just to say in bed is, and I'm understanding it correctly, it's double Shabbat for Sandola. So when you cut it, you have to cut a big piece. Is that what I understand from that?
You should cut the bigger one.
Oh, it's talking about.
If there are two chalos, which one is the bigger one? Cut the bigger one. Yeah. Cut the bigger bread. Yeah. Take a look, by the way, now back in the Mishnah Berurah. So that's what he says here. He quotes the Ramah. He says, don't cut until after the bracha, so that the bread will be whole. V'hamedaktikim. Now the people who are careful. Regilim lirshom basakin kodem bracha. They take their knife and they make a little indentation. They don't cut it. It's still considered whole. No one would go like, this bread is not whole anymore after you do that. You just make a little indent.
Score.
And why? In order to say, okay, I'm going to hurry up. I'm going to try to limit the time. I started a little bit. Because again, the idea is to limit the time between the time you make the bracha and the time that you consume the food. So by making a little rishima, a little indentation, what you're doing is you're saying like I'm hurrying up. I'm sort of keeping in the spirit with the halacha the way it is during the week. But really, I'm supposed to cut the bread, and it looks like it's still whole, but then be very quick in terms of getting to eating it. Okay. Siv, what time is it? All right, maybe let's do bet really quickly. It's very short. Okay. Siv base. Mitzvah livtzoa b'Shabbos prusa gedola shetafsik lo l'chol ha'seuda. This is what Shlomo was just brought up a moment ago. It's a mitzvah to break on Shabbos from the bigger loaf. And also it should speak lo l'chol ha'seuda, so it should last the whole meal. Use the bigger one so you can eat it throughout the whole meal. It should last the whole meal. Sif katan vav v'lo mechze kira'av son. You don't look like ra'av is like someone's hunger. You don't look like like you've never had a good meal before. You're like, wow, I took the big one. I'm like, going nuts here with the why Kevin She'ena Osa Kain B'chol. I don't do this on the weekdays. Right? Vada kavanasa shechaviv alav mitzvah hamitzvah v'rotze lechol harba. I want to eat a lot on Shabbos. So today I can let loose a little bit. Literally, I can let loose and enjoy my my bread. Sorry, Noam. All right. Can we finish? It's probably time to go though. Let's do Gimel very quick. Let's finish it. People are not allowed to, the mesubin, the people at the meal are not allowed to taste from the challah, from the bread until the breaker eats from the challah. Sorry. No, don't play that. Okay, thank you. Here's what I was talking about before, Shlomo. If everybody has lechem mishnah in front of themselves, and let's say one person makes hamotzi, but everyone has lechem mishnah, then I can go ahead and I can eat mine before the person who made the bracha, because I'm not dependent upon their lechem mishnah. I have my own lechem mishnah. Their bracha rishona is fine. Just like on a typical Tuesday, if you make a hamotzi for me and I was eating a sandwich and you were eating a sandwich, I can take a bite before you get to your bite. Okay. Take a look at the Mishnah Berurah here. The Mishnah Berurah writes in
everyone makes their own bracha. Right?
Nope. The one person can make the bracha, but we all have our own lechem mishnah. Right? No, stop, please. In Sif Kata Zayin, the Mishnah Berurah says, "Hainu afal pisha nasan habotzer lifnei kol echad v'echad eschalko." What happened? I'm cutting here. I gave it, but I didn't take a bite yet. So he gave it to me from lechem mishnah, but I didn't. He didn't eat. They gotta wait. That person. That's why it's really uncommon on the person who makes hamotzi to eat first. Right? Otherwise, you can trip up other people. People don't know this sometimes, and they're handing it out, and they're cutting, and they start sending it down the table. You got to take a bite first, before everyone else can take a bite.
Is the bracha, you have to follow the bracha immediately, right?
Yeah, really. And again, also part of that is because you should also minimize the time between when the bracha is made and the eating. Which is no different than a halacha on a regular weekday. That if I made the bracha and I'm the one holding the bread, you're having my bread, then I need to eat first before you do anything. Okay. Pivkatan ches lechem mishneh, double loaf. Rotze lomar va'az afal pi shehu motziam bebirchaso yichol litom kodem lo. That is to say that even though that he is being motzi the others with his bracha, they can taste before him because they have their own lechem mishnah. But if they don't have lechem mishnah each one, but they have their one single challah, like you see at many of these catered affairs. They have the one challah roll, right? That's in front of every person. That doesn't work. Right? Even though you have your bread there, and you can't eat from your own bread. You have to eat from lechem mishnah, 2 loaves. Which, by the way, would lead me to believe that if you were being yotzei through somebody else's hamotzi, but I had my own lechem mishnah in front of me, I should pick up those 2 loaves of bread, and then I can have without. Yeah. Okay. All right. One more minute. We're gonna keep it together now. Okay. All right. Fifth dollar up on top. the nighttime meal and the daytime meal, shachris, the morning one, efshar. It's impossible to do those meals without bread. Not to say you can't have kiddush with not bread, right? Kiddush malkum suda doesn't require bread. These are two different tracks. Therefore, I can have kiddush like I have here, kiddush, and I have crackers and herring and whatever. But then I have to go home and I have to have 2 loaves of bread. Maybe I don't have to make kiddush, by the way, because if I was Yosef kiddush malkum suda, everyone has Yosef with kiddush malkum suda. I don't have to make kiddush again at home, technically. And I could just go home and have start with hamotzi. But I have to have a meal with 2 loaves of bread. Otherwise, it doesn't register. Yeah, but what if they were in shul? Maybe I don't have to make kiddush. Right? If everybody was Yotzei Kiddush Makom Suda, they fulfilled all the laws we're talking about in the last simon, and we didn't have to. I can come home and we can start right with washing. But that's the interesting part here. You have to have bread. Take a look at the last sif here, and then we're done for today. Suda zo v'chulei wrote Salomar shafil dasa mekilin lekamon. Even according to those who are lenient later on. Look, and we'll get there. We will talk about shalashus. There's a big machlokas. So I have to have bread, not bread. Can I have some other things? We will get to it. There are those who some say who don't have to have bread. The dafka in that time. I'm trying to teach everybody. Okay. He says here. For the first 2 meals, everybody agrees you must have lechem mishnah. You can't have a meal without bread. Impossible. You must do that. It's a requirement. Right? Let's say there's some onus happened. I was called into the hospital because I was on-call doctor. Something happened at night I couldn't have my meal. And so what should I do? The next day gets pushed to the next day. So yochal shalosh seudos bayom. I should make time to have 3 meals during the day. Uvelvad sheyakadosh v'alala v'yochal miyad achar kiddush kazayis mechameshes minim. I didn't have any bread. So what should I do at night? So I should still make kiddush and have some crackers, something with 5 grains. Oh, yishte revius yain, or at least I should have a revius of wine. Therefore, it's kiddush malkum suda. And then Kemoshe custom for Reish and Gimel, just like we talked about previously in those laws. So we will we'll stop here. Now, hopefully, you have an understanding of the laws of not just kiddush. But now we understand what do we do when we break bread, right, on Friday night and Shabbos day. What are we supposed to do? So now we have a better understanding. Hopefully, I'll make a couple more comments next time, just from the Aruch HaShulchan about some of the minhagim about this. But otherwise, we'll continue on to Dvarim ha'asurim la'asos or haner b'Shabbos. A totally new topic, but things that you can and cannot do by the light of the candles on Shabbos.
2 questions.
Yes.
Rav. Hi. Rav.
Well, 1 second, Simeon. Jeffrey was asking a question here, and then I'll come to you.
I heard Mayor Belovich and he once gave a shir about like the 10 misconceptions, right? Things that just we do wrong.
Yeah.
One of his things was cutting of the meaning like that. Like,
Yeah.
Like that putting in the knife for what the Mishnah Berurah said.
Yeah.